What's up, guys? This is Jay from Revolution Radio, and I wanted to talk about the election in Bolivia. It's fairly important because there's so many facets to this, and it deserves a much more thorough video than what I'm going to give it. I will include a link to a website that really breaks it down very, very well. And there's even a guy on Twitter named Kevin Cashman. He breaks it down really thoroughly. But anyway, the election was between the incumbent, who is Evo Morales, and his opposition, Carlos Mesa. Um, so what happened election night was that the quick count, and I'll take just a second to explain a quick count. So what they do, and many countries do this, is they have a quick count, and then they have a uh, um, an official count. And a quick count is sort of it pretty much counts people in more of your urban areas where it's easier to vote, and it's basically like it says. It's a quick count. It's not official though, and that's the one thing to keep in mind about this whole thing. Um, Oftentimes, I guess with a quick count, if they are, if like 95% of the people have voted, and if somebody's winning by 10%, then they call it for that person. And of course, like any other election, they still go through and count. In fact, really, um, with a quick count, um, once, like basically once it hits like 83% of the tally sheet has been verified, um, then with somebody receiving 10% more, then they will call it. They still finish up the count. They don't just drop it at that. Um, and yeah, so it is a little confusing, but it doesn't really matter. It's more of just a way to keep people informed. So what happened was just like every other night in every other election that they've had, the quick count hit that percentage, and then they had stopped updating it. Many people are saying it was the official count that they stopped updating, but that's not true. The official count wasn't even released at that point. So I'll read a little bit from the website. It's a cpr.net if you're curious. In these elections, the result of the official count generally coincided with those of the quick count, which ended once 95.63% of the tally sheets were counted, with Morales having a lead of 46.86% to Mesa's 36.72. The final count, with 100% of the votes counted, results with Morales winning the election with 47% and Mesa 36%. On the very next day, um, AOS, the Electoral Observation Mission in Bolivia, hereafter issued an initial post-election press release, which expressed its deep concern and surprise at the drastic and hard-to-explain change in the trend of the primary results. Revealed after the closing of the polls in line with quick count process in the previous elections. The TSE had ended the quick count at 83% of the tally sheets verified. This tally showed MAS-IPIS receiving 45% of the presidential votes and the CC receiving 37. Now, if you were curious what those were, that was basically Morales receiving 47%, 45%, and as we said, Carlos receiving 37%. A difference of 7%. And 2 days later, the AOS mission issued its primary report on the elections, which briefly repeated the criticism that the changes in the quick count trend were hard to explain and did not match other measurements available. However, the mission provided no evidence to support that statement, suggesting that the quick count could be wrong or hard to explain. The following paper analyzes the election results and finds that the results from the quick count for the first 83.5% of the vote count are consistent with the final projected result of Morales winning the election outright with a more than 10% point victory. Neither the OAS, or any other party has demonstrated that there were widespread or systematic irregularities in the election. Neither quick count nor the official count exhibit significant changes in voting trends in the final results. The legally binding vote count, the official count, did not stop for any significant period of time, which was something that was noted. And many medias are saying that the tallying was halted, but it wasn't. That was the quick count. Again, quick count not being official. The other interesting thing about this is people who had projections about this election lined up with what exactly happened. Now, it's really hard to fake a projection that everyone else had. It doesn't make sense. So we kind of have to look a little bit further. One of the things to really break down about this is, in the quick count, it did have Morales only winning by 7%. Okay? But there again, let's think about whose vote's going to be counted first. And it's going to be people in urban areas, not the more of your, your rural areas, which is where a majority of supporters for Morales were from. And that obviously would come in later once they had their votes tallied. Even at that, we still have a pretty hefty 8%. And this is what they want to throw the entire election over, which is fine, according to Morales, who said, look, you want to do another election? Let's do it. Mesa did not want to do it. And the military turned on Morales, and he had to resign. This is nothing more than a coup. We've seen it in every other area where we have a socialist who's doing well, and our country doesn't like it. Why would I say that? Because the OAS is actually majorly funded by America. People like Rubio are pushing for Morales to resign. It's the same in Venezuela. It's the same as we've seen in just about every other country with a successful socialist government. And you might question, why would I say successful? If you look at all the numbers, like for instance, when Morales took office, the annual or the monthly wage earned was about like $685 a month. It is now over $2,000 a month. If you had a president who brought you $1,400 a month more, why would you not want him to win? Doesn't make sense. Also, fairly good for the people. The GDP has actually risen as well in Bolivia. Bolivia has turned a corner as far as their economy has been concerned. And the other big thing to note is he's the very first indigenous president that Bolivia has had. Bolivia is a majority indigenous people. So it makes you believe that they would want him to win. The only reason why I have any sort of, withdrawal for support on Morales is that he was already president for 2 terms. And in Bolivia, they have a 2-term limit. He tried to basically pass a law to do away with term limits, and it actually didn't pass. And it was the courts, though, who said that they didn't recognize the term limits. So that's why he was able to run again. I'm not exactly a fan of that. Anyone in power shouldn't be pushing to do away with term limits. I think that's kind of a problem. But anyway, that's kind of where we are with this Bolivia situation. I'm definitely going to do a lot deeper dive on it But just understand their economy was in a great place. Everything that we're seeing is matching up with what was expected to happen. It doesn't look like there was any fraud in this election at all. And to make things even more, to compound it even more, Morales was more than willing to do another election. And it was the opposition who wasn't. Now, if he was throwing it, and if he was doing something disingenuous, why would he just agree to another election? It seems odd. Now, I want to switch to American politics, which is, I don't know, it's a mess. It's a bigger mess than Bolivia or Venezuela. No, just quickly, I just want to talk about Lindsey Graham was on Fox yesterday. Rand Paul did a little bit on, I believe, Face the Nation. And both of these two have had every reason to keep complaining about the process of impeachment of Donald Trump. Now, first, the big complaint was it's behind closed doors. Shouldn't be behind closed doors. Okay. So now we're having public hearings. They start Wednesday. Well, this shouldn't be in public. It's a conspiracy. Which one do you want? Well, I want to see the transcripts. I want to see the transcripts of these closed door hearings. They asked Lindsey Graham, since they've been released, by the way, and they are slowly being released, but they are released. There's over 2,000 pages of these transcripts that are released to the public. The host on Fox yesterday asked Lindsey Graham, have you read them? And he said, no, I'm not even going to open them up. I've made up my mind. What? That's his job to read them. And anyone going in with that kind of mindset, that no matter what, he didn't do it. Is that really someone we want representing us? I mean, he's outright saying, I don't care what the people want. I'm doing what I want to do. So now they've gone even further. As before, they were saying, hey, no quid pro quo. You can't prove quid pro quo. Doesn't matter if what he actually did was quid pro quo, but you can't prove it. Well, now after these transcripts have come out, maybe it was, they say, maybe it was quid pro quo, but I don't really care. I mean, we know that this is how the way that they're going to respond to it is that they don't care. They don't care about proving anything. They just want to keep Trump in presidency, namely so that they win their elections. That's really all they care about. They don't care about America. They're party over country, time and time again. In a way, to tie it back to the Bolivia election situation, why aren't we seeing any proof of what they're saying? Well, I can tell you why. Because they're not saying anything. They keep moving. They keep moving the goalpost further back, further back. They have no actual stance on any of this other than, well, okay, so you proved that we were wrong here. All right, well, now you have to prove we're wrong here. Now you have to prove that we were wrong here. And no matter what, they just have no standard. There is no standard for failure. They don't care. They really don't. And it is disturbing to see that this is what passes for a representative of American people. Neither one of these men should ever win another election again. They have no principles. They do what it takes to survive. Now, the final thing that I'm going to complain about with both of them is that they say that they should be allowed to cross-examine the whistleblower. Donald Trump should be able to face the whistleblower. Why would you do that? I'll tell you why. So they can break down his credibility. But if you're a logical person, you're going to think, well, yeah, but why do they even need to talk to him? Now, if what the whistleblower said was unproven and there was nothing really backing up what he's saying and nobody, agreed with what he was saying, nobody was in line with his story, then fair enough. I think okay, that's fair. We could talk to him. We should find out what's going on. But at this point, the whistleblower he's not essential at all because his story has been backed up by 13 other people. And in fact, these other people have more information than the whistleblower does. The whistleblower heard some information. Hey, your government's doing some jacked up stuff. He reported that, and that's it. Then they investigated the people who were doing the messed up stuff, and they found out, hey, they were doing messed up stuff. The whistleblower's part is done and has been done for a long time. There is nothing more besides intimidating him, is all they want to do. Places like the Drudge Report should be attacked, sued, and taken out of um, any sort of journalistic media, anything. They shouldn't be allowed to exist anymore, as they did reveal the name of the whistleblower. And I haven't even looked at it, so I couldn't tell you the name. I really don't care. It doesn't have anything to do with this impeachment situation. He made a claim that was true. See something, say something kind of thing. And I thought we were in a country that was a good thing. Although, I guess it depends what side you're on. The other thing with the whistleblower that I might just say is that it's funny how people like Rand Paul were all behind Snowden and said that he should have his anonymity, that he was speaking truth to power and we should all get behind him. But he doesn't stay consistent with that belief. As you can see, once it threatens his president, now he wants to attack him. And really for nothing. They also want to pull Hunter Biden and the one of the operational managers for a nuclear power company, and people who are along this Clinton Biden storyline that, yeah, there might be some truth to a lot of what Trump's complaining about. But that's not how you do a court case. It has nothing to do with it. If we want to break out an investigation on Biden, on Clinton, later, then I'm all for it. But two wrongs don't make a right kind of thing. And this hearing is about Trump's actions and nobody else's. Once they kind of change that narrative and turn it, then you know that he's guilty. Most of us are smart enough to know he's already guilty. There is no taking it back. It's not going to pass the Senate, and we'll see how that ends. That's going to be interesting. I don't think the American people are going to be so cool about it. But if you do want to be a good American, start reading the transcripts. It's like 2,000 pages. There's a lot to it. But anyway, that's it for the show. I will include the link to the information about Bolivia. It is so comprehensive, so broken down. I didn't do a great job. I try to keep these shows under 20 minutes, and I'll be honest, I'm watching the Seahawks barely lose to the 49ers right now, and I want to get back to that. I know they're gonna lose. It's bad, but anyway, so I will include that link so you can check that out. Also, it being Veterans Day, I want to say one thing about Veterans Day. I do believe that we should show the respect that these soldiers deserve, and we should get behind supporting them when they come back from action, and they should be allowed the health care and medical care that they need for not only their physical ailments, but their mental ailments as well. But just as kind of a practice for anyone living in America, anyone living wherever, as this might seem weird, but for Veterans Day, do a little research and find out how you got to where you're at. Meaning, how do you own the land that you're on? Even if you don't really own it. But if you're living in Utah, say, 15 miles out of Salt Lake City, how did you get that? How are you an American who's on that land? You'd be surprised. America has been through so many fights, wars, all over our country. Just tons and tons of land grabs. And to celebrate some of our military achievements, yeah, be it good or bad, mostly bad in this situation. Take the time to find out how you, as an American, are living in the land that you're on right now. I bet you'll find out that it belonged to somebody else, and as you read into it, you're kind of on that other team's side. Whether it be Mexico or the Native Americans or whoever, you'll probably learn some stuff about that land that you didn't really know. And if you're from Kansas, you also there's some good history in how you got here. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you. Have a good night.